Okay, so thanks everyone for joining. My name is Renata Gomide. I'm part of the Alumni Club in the Silicon Valley. I'm the career chair, so I have been organizing career events throughout this year, or actually throughout 2 or 3 years now. Very happy to have you guys here. And I think because we have such a small group today, I think people are still recovering from Thanksgiving and while preparing for Christmas. I'd really like to give you guys an opportunity to get off mute if you want to have your video on, introduce yourself, so we can use this as an opportunity to do some networking before Erica starts her great presentation about IND. So I can start, besides being part of the Michigan Alumni Club, I'm a consultant at Accenture. I work as a digital strategy consultant there, working primarily with technology clients. I've been with Accenture for almost 8 years now. And I did my MBA in the University of Michigan. When I'm not working, I blog about work-life balance, finding authentic choices to find balance on ideasfordivas.com. Want to go next?
I can go next, since I guess I'm on the bill, or on the, what is it called? Anyway, Friday. Yeah, thank you. So Erica Kelley, I work at Palo Alto Networks. It's a cybersecurity company. Have been here, just celebrated my 9th year. Went from when I started, I think in 2012, there were about 800-ish people. There's over close to 12,000 now. So I've seen significant growth in what is a high growth company. A lot of the changes here on my topic today. I went to law school here in Santa Clara, locally, and then worked at law firms for 10 years before I came in-house. And I was doing employment defense and litigation at Lawler for about 7 years. And so I manage and advise on all of the HR is my main client. And so inclusion and diversity is one of those key areas that's both a passion and an interest personally, but also something that I'm heavily involved in just from a legal risk perspective as well.
I'll go ahead. I'm Jamie Burke. Great to see everybody here today. I love the background, Sergio.
I know.
Fantastic.
I'm going to download it.
I was like probably all of us running from a work meeting, so I didn't have time to get my Michigan background up, but I'm glad you did. Oh, you got the hat too. That's awesome. So like Renata, I'm on the Silicon Valley Alumni Board, and I'm the culture chair, and I've been on the board for almost 3 years now. I'm a grad in the English department, and I work at my work, let's see, what happens to an English major, I ended up becoming—
Good things, Jamie, good things. That's the answer.
I fully agree. And I have to say, as an alum, the department is doing a really good job in terms of reaching out to us and having us tell our stories of, where do you go with that degree? So I started off as a grant writer, and now I run a team of fundraisers at the University of San Francisco. And of course, DEI is just a huge, huge part of our work and a huge part of the work of higher ed. And I'm super engaged, and my team is super engaged and definitely leading the way. So I'm happy to be here and happy to hear from Erica and all of you.
I can go next. My name is Justine Boker. I work at the Bud Group. We're a facilities maintenance company in the Southeast. We have almost 5,000 employees. I've been here 11 years, and when I started, we were at about 2,000. I was a women's studies major, class of 2008, and we are just starting down the path of DE&I. I'm part of our HR department, but not directly involved in that project. So I'm really here to learn what other people are doing, and to give some good feedback to our DE&I manager.
Awesome. Welcome.
I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Davis, and I actually work here at the University of Michigan. I'm the director of DEI at the School for Environment and Sustainability, and have been working at U of M since I graduated. And so I went to U of M for undergrad in psychology and sociology, and then went on and got my MSW at Michigan. And so a lot of my work is really about trying to help folks embed DEI and anti-racist practice within the scope of their work. So it's not just the role of our DEI staff, but really thinking about how everyone is integrating that into the scope of their work. And so trying to do some culture change work and looking at really how we're embedding that within policies and the structure of our school.
Were we doing top line first? Is that what happened? I don't know if everybody's screen's the same or not. I'm Angela. I'm from Dallas County, and I'm really eating up all these Zoom things since COVID. So I've been really done East Coast things. I've done West Coast things. I was all set at 10 o'clock this morning, but it wasn't 10 o'clock this morning. So I'm a Michigan grad twice, 90 and 94, economics, history, and business, and I've been at Dallas County for it'll be 25 years. But I'm over a small department, so I really wanted to learn, but I'm also in another training, a leadership training that's nationwide, and it's obviously come up in it, and it's been interesting, depending on who you talk to, what their definition of DEI is. So that's been an interesting eye-opening for me. So I just hope to learn a lot from you all. So, and it's late afternoon for me.
I can go next. Buenas tardes, from Sacramento area. My name is Sergio, S-E-R, so the emphasis on that first syllable. The J is like an H, so don't get it twisted like Surrey. It's Sergio. If you can roll the R, you bring sexy back, Sergio. And graduated University of Michigan in 2001 with the Master of Arts from the School of Education. I currently work at Sierra College, which is a community college in Rockland. I included even a little link if you want to, see the work that I do. For those of you who are at the Ann Arbor campus in particular, if you think of Trotter House and it's kind of multicultural work, it's what I do. So I oversee our Cross-Cultural Center, Pride Center, Women and Gender Resource Center, as well as support our Undocumented Student Center and International Student Engagement. So I've been at Sierra for 6 years, but I've been in post-secondary education, that's my master's, since 2001. So hey, I'm 2 decades into this. Really excited that y'all did this. So I'm glad to be here, from the further East Bay with these Silicon Valley folks. Thank you.
Once we go next, don't get shy.
I'll go. So my name is Michelle Hamrick, and I went to the business school in 1992. I've spent my career as an accountant. My last job was CFO of a real estate company in Los Altos, California, and I'm taking a career break and pivoting towards a more community-oriented work. And so I'm really interested about this topic so that I can do my community work with a better foundation in these areas.
Okay. Anybody else wants to go?
Sorry, did we come on? I'm doing is this introduction time? I just got on. I apologize.
Yes, we are doing intros. Thanks for joining. Want to go next, Caroline?
Yeah, I'll go. Let me put myself on camera. Hello, everyone. My name is Carolyn Mims. I am an employee. Oops, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm an employee at UC Berkeley. I am the Associate Diversity Officer for UC Berkeley Extension. I am also a marketing specialist for our marketing creative team. And I too am looking to do some shifting in my career because of Challenges I've faced as a Black woman in my professional career, and where I see the lack of concern when it comes to me being a mom, a wife in corporate America, higher education, and the support that's needed for us to function psychologically safe. And I am glad that I've taken on this role as ADO, so I can be a builder, a pillar in this change for the next person behind me. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm excited. Hopefully I will take away some gems from each one of you. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Joining. Anybody else?
I can go. Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm located in the Bay Area in Oakland. I am also doing a career pivot. I find that time and time again, I keep finding myself being drawn to like DIB kind of topics and initiatives, and I keep doing them on top of my own job. So I've decided to kind of take a step back and apply for roles full time. So I'm kind of in that job I guess, applying process right now in my life, but I saw this event and I just decided to sit in and listen and learn and maybe connect with some folks.
Welcome. Anybody else?
Yes,
can go.
hello.
Oh, just see that.
Excuse me.
Hi, my name's Heather Lawler. I'm a recent graduate from University of Michigan, a Master in Science in Dental Hygiene. I'm the Dental Hygiene Program Director at Cabrillo College in Santa Cruz. And I'm just interested in this topic. We do a lot of community outreach and have community partners. And I think, you know, this kind of training is really valuable. So.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry about that. My name is Jesse Villarreal. I work at Palo Alto Networks, third year at Palo Alto Networks. I'm also one of the leaders of our employee network group, Juntos, and trying to see what I can learn, listen and learn and connect here. I'm always looking to learn new things. In my free time, I'm also a board member of Silicon Valley chapter of Prospanica, and I like to do art and cooking. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Jesse and I have been on some like DEI type events together. So I was like, oh, he's here. I didn't even know you're a Michigan grad. That's why these are great.
Not a Michigan grad, but a supporter. You know,
then go blue. As long as you say those words, we're fine.
Okay. Anybody else? Are we good to start? Okay, Erica, I'll hand it over to you.
Hey,
You're
well,
super excited to
I'm,
see
you
the
know,
presentation.
to say it's a little intimidating with this group of people is putting it mildly. I look forward to a conversation with everybody, because I think with the group of people that we have, it'll be, I think, you know, helpful, enlightening for everybody. There's gonna be points throughout where I just, you know, ask for feedback. I don't know if I can see. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to be asking for feedback, so I had to make sure I could see a chat window so that when I ask for feedback, at least in the chat, that I could see it as it's coming in. So yeah, currently work at Palo Alto Networks, oversee a number of different functions within the legal department, but for purposes here today, well, I guess this is my cross-functional group. I do oversee intellectual property, litigation, legal operations, and our ethics and compliance program. So if you're interested in any of those topics, let me know. Happy to talk to anybody about those ad nauseum. So welcome to everybody. It doesn't advance. Okay, I'll click. Somebody mentioned, I can't remember who, but that diversity means different things to different people. And I can tell you that, you know, you have both demographic, experiential, cognitive. And so when We've gotten questions at Pulse Networks. We have become significantly more transparent and in talking to our entire workforce about the importance of inclusion and diversity. And we've had questions, understandably, where people say, well, you know, I have people from different universities on my team. Doesn't that mean that we're diverse? And you know, we do want to encourage, right, any level of diversity, because a lot of times, you know, socioeconomic diversity as well can bring different perspectives. But primarily, as I'm sure all of you are aware, companies focus on the demographic diversity as their primary measure. There are many reasons for that, but I think the most important is that people and companies recognize that there have just been systemic inequities for a lot of our women and underrepresented minorities that demonstrate a focused need by organizations and companies to really use that as your marker in order to bring about change. And so, you know, at least where most companies where you see measurement or goals around diversity, they're generally talking about the demographic. But I can say that we do talk internally within our company and within teams. We talk about all of these different types of diversity, and that it is important, it is relevant in order to bring different types of perspectives to a team and to make it successful. You know, you think about sort of diversity as race, things that you can see, race, maybe age, height, gender, things like that. That is sort of the tip of the iceberg. I think, Carolyn, you had mentioned, you know, your mom, yeah, other things, right? But underneath the surface, when you're thinking about who people are and what make up who they are, what perspective they bring to a company, to a team, and what you know, value they can provide in that regard. There are so many different things that make up who we are on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, in the chat, if you don't mind, people on the phone, couple things that you think of when you think of things that are under the surface, right? As far as sort of what shapes who you are and what you can bring to an organization, to a team, to, you know, a brainstorming session. Anybody? Transparency, that's good. Immigrant parents, definitely. Yeah. So these are, you know, there are a number of different things that, you know, shape who you are, and it's things that we can't see. Remembering that, you know, as we kind of go through the process. We like to think of diversity as a mix of talent. The different colors, you know, within the crayon box, or the different types of people. And it brings different perspectives, thoughts, backgrounds, skills. Those are all really critical in building a team and experiences Black. Thank you. But what we think of inclusion is getting the mix of the talent to work together. It's funny, Sergio. And what that means is allowing, you know, when you can get that right, when you can get the feeling of inclusion, when you can allow people to bring their authentic selves to work, to feel a sense of belonging, to be able to connect with people that they work with, then you can realize they can realize their own true potential, and that benefits everyone and anyone within the team and the organization. And so that's why it is so important to think of the two things together. Bringing people in, bringing diverse talent into an organization is not enough. It's not going to keep people. It's not going to make them have that true potential. That is the reason why you brought them in to begin with. You know, there's studies galore around the tangible benefits and the business benefits of IND. And so if you look at Engagement is twice as high. You have retention benefits that is significant. You have, I mean, innovation is something that is, I think, in every study shows that the more diverse a team, the greater sort of the collective brain power on the creative ideas and the breadth of those creative ideas, which, as most companies ultimately want to know about, is what's the bottom dollar. And so, you know, studies have shown time and time again that, you know, you have all of these benefits. And a recent study by the Harvard Business Review Analytic Services said, recent survey, that 2/3 of the companies say DEI is a strategic priority for their company. Why is it so elusive? Why do we all sit and think about why, you know, why are we not making change? What are we doing? What should we be doing differently? But where is that? Where's the crux of the issue? How do I figure out, you know, where that problem can be? Diverse leadership is one. If you have, you know, everybody looks the same at the top, you're gonna have a tougher road. Measurable goals. You know, what do you know what it is that you're even measuring? What are you thinking about? And then accountability. I mean, you know, it's everyone's been talking about this for a long time and we haven't seen change. So, you know, why is that? And I think for me, you know, one of the important things and sort of what brings some of this together is unconscious bias. I'm sure a lot of you have heard, it sounds like a lot of you have been in this area or, you know, whether it's through interest or your professional career, understand what that is. But we'll go through just a couple of examples so that you can kind of put, you know, that concept into reality. In the United States, what % of men are over 6 feet tall? In the US, that stat is 15%, right? It's not that many. And you have 85% of the population is shorter than that. How many people, how many Fortune 500 CEOs are over 6 feet tall? Put in the chat. What do you think? What's the percentage? 15%, 80%, 35%, 66%. A lot of you have very high 15%. Okay, who said that? Are we really equal? I'm just kidding. Thanks, Marco. Let's see. 60%. That's not alarming stat, but it shows something around what I can't imagine that 60%, that height has anything to do with your capability, right? And your aptitude to be a successful CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So what is it that creates this kind of a disparity? Do people look at tall people and perceive them to be smarter, more powerful, more assertive? You know, it's interesting. And so it's one of those things that is a little eye-opening. Another interesting study on this. Why are women 47% more likely to be injured in a car crash? Women were 5.5 inches shorter, 35 pounds lighter. Guess who was on the design team? Right? It makes a difference. It makes a difference who is involved in decisions and who's coming up with the ideas in order to get all of the different perspectives. And the last one, yeah, percent of females in the top 5 orchestras in the 1970s, less than 5%. Today, 25 to 30%. What do you think could have been a reason for that? Do you think the women just got better? Do you think that somehow they picked up the instrument sometime in that period? Justine, you've seen this before. Look at you. Renata. Okay, you guys are good. So yes, that is true. What they decided to do is put up a screen that the audition would be behind a screen with no shoes, because what they realized is that women would typically have heels on when they would walk onto the stage for their audition, even if it was behind a screen. And so they could hear the clicking of the heels, and there was some potential bias that was coming in. Yeah, look at this group. It's very, I'm surprised there. This group's very smart. But it just goes to show how pervasive that unconscious bias can be, and the actual effects that it has on society. So I'm sure lots of you have been through this training. I promise you this is not an unconscious bias training, but it does go through the implicit attitudes, actions, judgments that happen really without you realizing it. Your brain is processing an immeasurable number of data points. And so in order for you to function and not just be sitting in a corner crying, is that you have to filter through in some fashion. That's my general understanding of the science. I did not have a science degree, so I'll stop there, but that's the gist of it. We all have it. I just talked about a little bit about the science. It's really quite fascinating, actually. But one quick thing I just want to mention is, how does it play out in the real world? You have assumptions about someone's culture and who's willing to speak up, who's willing to take a risk. You may be making those assumptions, making those decisions, based on some unconscious bias. Assumptions about skills or creativity, assumptions about who's willing to work hard or put in long hours. I got 3 kids, all from 6 to 12 years old. And, I know that it was a challenge for me, and, I think it was my own issue, but for a long, even in the law firm, and then when I moved into in-house, the other people I worked with had a stay-at-home significant other, which I do not have, nor do I have family near me. And so it was sort of that I felt guilty and kept apologizing for, sorry, I had to take my kids to school, so I can't get to the office until 9:30 because their school doesn't start, and it was just that sort of thing that you feel, am I being judged differently? Do they think I'm not working as hard as my colleagues because they have the flexibility to come and go as they need to? It was just always one of those things that was a challenge, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. So we'll go through, as I said, the Harvard Business Review. If it's fascinating, little short read here for a recent survey they did of 1,100 North American organization leaders, and asked them essentially, do you think that you're doing a good job on DEI at your company? And if they answered yes, they were considered, do you feel like you're doing a good job and that you've made a lot of progress, right, in this area? And if they said yes, they were considered a leader. And then if they said no, they're called a laggard. And then there was a middle category as well. And then as part of that, they then asked them a lot of questions about sort of what are you doing at your organization? Oh yeah, Renat's a good point. What are you doing at your organization to sort of dig in, like, what, you think you're making a change and that you're doing a good job in this area. So what are you doing? And so hopefully, we can have a good conversation amongst us through maybe what you've seen, what you're doing, but let's start with some of the data that they found. So the top 5 actions that differentiate the leaders in diversity, equity, and inclusion from the laggards. I'm opening the chat. This is what I do. I went to law school. There's something called the Socratic method where they just start calling on people to ask, but luckily Zoom has created this chat feature. Openness, that's a good one. Actionable plans. Listening, Angela, yeah. It's good. Number 5, safe reporting mechanisms. Seems interesting, but 63% said that they had a safe reporting mechanism, meaning if you felt that there were concerns about comments or decisions that you believe to be based on a protected category or based on a perception of inequity, do you have a place to report it? Do you have a place to talk about it? Safe space, exactly. DEI training for everybody. Getting everybody on the same page, making sure everyone's aligned on what it means. And it does not mean that we're never hiring white males, right? That is not at all what it means, and that's not our intent. But it's really saying, don't take the easy way, right? Don't just hire someone that looks like you because that's easy, but let's look at everybody and realize the benefit potential there. DEI training for all the managers. That was also really important, especially in hiring and making sure that they understood what that means. And since I'm the legal counsel, what it doesn't mean in particular around making employment decisions based exclusively on, based even in part on a person's demographic background or protected category. A culture that's supportive. And I think that you can start to get there, and you'll probably see this in numbers 3 and 4, right? You can't get to 2 without 3 and 4. You have to have the training, you have to have the messaging, the conversations in order to create a culture that people understand and can be a part of the solution and not just be sort of a product of. And then you can't make change without visible executive support. I'm sure that's probably not surprising to anyone. Tone from the top. Oh, Laura, did you have something to say? Okay. Tone from the top is critical. I mean, that is so important for everyone to understand that it is important to the organization. It's important to the leaders. That trickles down. And so looking at, the sort of the top 5 things that make a difference or that these leaders in change felt were making a difference for them. And I think a lot of you guys were mentioning in the chat here as well, is it's so important. So it's sort of a like, how do you do those things from the previous slide? How do you make sure that it is successful? How do you get the tone from the top? How do you make sure that you have a culture of that supports DEI? And here it's, as most of you pointed out, setting goals, making sure that the leadership, knows what those are. Find measurements. You have to measure those goals, hold people accountable, not in a, you can't, I would not advise, at least, and we don't, saying, oh, because you didn't increase this number of hires in these categories, then you will be penalized. That's not creating a culture that is based on inclusion, right? Because, you have to think about the fact that you want to create a culture that values the different perspectives, the different experiences, and the value of those things that will come in, and not just checking a box, not just making sure that these numbers are the way. The numbers are the product. They're that's what happens, but what you're really looking to create is making sure that everyone's on board with networking, with reaching out to different organizations and partnering with them to help find the talent and potential in the marketplace. So going through setting a goal and then being able to measure it, measuring progress regularly, be transparent with your employees, that I think has a level of accountability that you can't get away from, and it's important. And then dig into the data at all levels. The corporate level, recruiting, we'll go through some of this as well. Business teams and units, assess whether additional training is needing. And here, you think about, at the top level, we're good, right? And you go, well, we have our, let's say, female representation is 50%, and it's awesome. Let's say you have, but then when you look into the data and you say, wow, we only have 3% in our R&D in our product, and we have 100% in marketing, and we have, right, and then 100% in HR, right? And you have these more, sort of stereotypical roles that is sort of based on gender, and you're not helping to solve the problems and getting the value of the different perspectives. And so it's really not just taking at face value that sort of overarching metric, but really making sure that you understand all of the data as it trickles down and flows through your organization at all different levels. And as you can see, I am forced to put in my attorney hat around you can't make an employment decision based on a protected category. But things that you can think about is making sure that, when you look at job descriptions, right? Does it have to be, do they have to have this very niche skill in this very niche industry for the last 10 years? When you know that there has been systemic inequities for these populations of people where they will never meet that standard, right? They just won't. And so is that really needed? And how do we start to change that? Is that something that can be learned over time? And so sort of leaning in on the business and looking through even at that very basic level, because it can start to feel like, well, this is what the hiring manager said they need, right? I don't like to take things at face value. I don't know. I don't always believe people, but I'm jaded though. I'm an attorney. So, but really thinking critically about that. What are the words that are being used in the job description? I know that there's a lot of different companies that can sort of do that. Like keyword things like, oh, if you use words like this, it tends to be perceived by, for example, women differently than it does for men. And so you may get more interest or less interest depending on the type of words that are used. Policies, of course, thinking through, what kind of, policies do you have that can support and attract people and talent from all different areas and all different walks of earth. So kind of thinking through a lot of those are really the key to help move the needle, right? Like, how are you going to hold your organization accountable, and how are you going to actually help move the needle? These are some of the foundational things that you need to start doing if you're not already. And then you always have the DEI. At Pulse Networks, we're called IND. We lead with inclusion because we do think it is really important. But what does it mean? That all people, inclusion, general definition, all people feel valued, respected, have access to the same opportunities. Treating everyone fairly and equitably not only contributes to the employees feeling a sense of value and respect, but it's the right thing to do. And knowing that it's already hard. It can be challenging to find the best talent from all different demographic groups. So when you bring them in and they don't feel welcome, included, heard, and a part of the team, they're going to leave, right? So all of any potential effort that you put into that effort and the value, right, that you're getting from that individual is gone. And so it's really critically important that you focus on the equity and inclusion piece. You want to be the best, you want to get the best, then you want to be the best. This is really important. I think, someone, I think in our introductions was talking about this as well, just around think through at your company policies and practices. Are you doing pay equity analysis? Underprivileged, please consult your attorney. Also performance and promotion analyses, also underprivileged. But those are good ways to sort of measure, you want to do the right thing, but are the decisions that are actually being made translating into change? It goes back to, so where are you and what are the moving the needle and being able to see whether or not that's actually happening. Do you have paid leave policies, right? That can support people who have either aging parents or want to start a family or have health conditions that may require them to be out, with for various reasons. Do you allow for flexible hours, right? And these are the types of things that you could think through to see whether or not, how welcome and how much a sense of belonging people have and how long they feel like they can stay with you. Do you allow for remote work, right? We're in the Bay Area. I mean, my goodness. I mean, those that grew up in Michigan, my dad was always like, buy property. I'm like, Dad, you have no idea what the cost of real estate is out here. And it's not for everyone. People want to be near their family. I get it. I completely understand. I brought my family here as my brother and sister. And so do you have the ability to allow for remote work? You're going to expand your talent pool. You're going to expand your ability to hire and bring in that valuable potential if you can allow for it. So again, think back and, here, we'll talk about Pelton Networks in a second. The expected availability during non-business hours. Do you have a culture where it's like you have to be always on? Is it burnout? I think Renata, you were talking about the work-life balance aspect of that, and really trying to, ensure that from the top down, give people space, let people breathe, right? Think about well-being and don't just talk about it, but try to live it. And get that support from all levels of management, so employees feel it, actually feel it when they're there. Benefits options that can also help people, again, really feel like, that it's a place where they want to be. At Pelton Networks, we started what we call flex work, and it was born out of the pandemic. Everybody's working from home. We now know it was that forced social experiment to demonstrate that people can work remotely, be productive, and organizations can continue to thrive. And so here we're never required to go back to the office. That's the gist. And employees can decide whether they want to work at home or in an office. And it's 100% their choice. And so we've really pivoted to employee choice. And that's going through all of the decisions that we make. And so there's a couple of pieces to that. One is what we call flex benefits, where we're rethinking our medical plans, rethinking our plans in general, the benefits that we provide to people, because, if I'm 55 and looking to retire in 5 or 10 years, I don't have the same maybe medical needs as like somebody who's 21 out of college. I may, maybe not. Same with like 401k, right? If I'm getting a little older in years, like maybe I care about that more, and somebody earlier in their career, maybe not as much. So thinking through, meet people where they are, and not just sort of force upon them what is like the standard and traditional and an old way of thinking. We're really trying to bring about change there. Yeah, we also have a flex benefit stipend, which allows you to kind of use as you need for any sort of well-being, something that will help make you, unwind, whatever that means to you. It can be anything from a video game console to a mountain bike. So it's a really nice benefit. But it's, again, thinking through, everyone is different. People need different things, and it's really starting to focus on that. All right, does anybody know what this is, the top 10 list? Somebody, please, somebody say in the chat what they know what this is. Anybody? This graphic, does this break? Thank you. Oh, Jamie. I was like, oh, I'm really dating myself here. But all right, it's the David Letterman top 10 list. But if people were looking at, like, okay, well, sounds great, measurable goals, tracking, what does that mean? Like, what are people actually doing? I'll go back to that survey that I talked about through the Harvard Business Review, and we'll go through some of the tangible things that you should think about measuring that hopefully will help you start to make change. Again, performance ratings, succession planning. We're not doing that. Well, I'm happy to say we're doing like almost everything on this list, which is a great sign, at least where we are. Compensation, again, the pay equity analysis. Are you making sure that across the board your pay practices are fair and equitable? That's digging deeper into the business organizations, representation across the different units, and not just relying on that top level corporate number, because when you dig in, it can mean different things. Promotions and promotion rates. Again, happy to say that, we look at this very closely, and we're doing well. Development opportunities, that's thinking through where you have that big project right on the team, and does, I don't know, Bill always get that project, or does he do you tend to lean towards a particular person or two on your team that gets maybe visibility to the executives, and really thinking through and like training your managers on how to do better about making sure that you're giving other people opportunities. The representation of job descriptions, measuring your retention and your rates, especially across different demographic groups. Are more people leaving in certain certain categories of people that you're measuring that maybe then is normal? Look into it, right? Why is that happening? What's going on? Are they in certain business units? Do we need to do more training? I think these ones are going to be a lot more common for people around the recruitment and candidate sourcing. What does your pipeline look like? And that kind of stuff. And then of course, hiring. I think everybody is probably very familiar with the hiring piece. So I know we're getting close on time, so I'll go through this a little quickly. How can your organization facilitate an inclusive culture? Jesse's on here. He is a leader in our Juntos employee network group. We have a lot of them. I am an ally to all of them. I just love meeting people, in case you haven't noticed. And so really allowing people the opportunity to both connect with people of either that same background, but other people as well, and to help educate, train, and it all sort of feeds into that flywheel of creating an inclusive culture. Diverse hiring panels, right? If you're trying to bring in a woman to your R&D team, it's really hard if they're all men, right? On the hiring panel, it doesn't feel like that person will be welcome when they start. Ongoing reminders about the unconscious bias. Mentorship programs, allowing people opportunities within your organization to both meet and network, as we all are here today to do, but also help provide development opportunities, a safe space for questions, a hotline. We talked about the safe reporting places, and we're creating something at Pulse Networks called Flex Connect that allows people, for example, to say, I went to the University of Michigan, I would love to meet all University of Michigan people, and then it will automatically sort of do the algorithm, like a matching game, and connect me with people at Pulse Networks that also went to the University of Michigan. But trying to simplify and streamline ways for people to connect on a whole host of different things. Because we all know, people connect in different ways. So just going through some micro inequities. These are things to be thoughtful about, kind of in your day-to-day. You know, do you exclude people from small talk? Do you leave people off of distribution lists or meeting invites? Listening to some but not others, mispronouncing people's names, or repeatedly forgetting names, scheduling meetings on foreign holidays, sharing insensitive jokes. Well, you should never do that, I'll tell you that. And then, making those assumptions, again, unconscious bias. I can say an example of like the religious holiday, foreign holidays. I have a global team, and I'm very conscious of the times that I set meetings, to make sure that, if this is a meeting that they need to be in, or at least I'm moving it around to allow the opportunity for them to be included, for that very reason. And then just some of the micro advantages that you don't think about, or you might do unconsciously, because you feel naturally connected. You have a intuitive feeling that someone would do well. So these are just things to be aware of, in your everyday, and when you're interacting with people or counseling or advising people, to keep these things top of mind. As individuals, how can we be more inclusive? Recognize that everyone has a bias. It's not a bad thing. It's human nature. But being honest about what yours might be, identify and check your assumptions. Join an ENG, be an ally. You learn a lot, you meet a lot of really, really great people, and consciously practice acts of inclusion every day. There's, I won't go into it. I know we're running low on time, but there's a handful of things that we have sort of a document that's like the 100 acts of inclusion that we try to encourage people to sort of look through. And it can be as simple as, learn what all of the letters of LGBTQIA+ mean, right? I mean, it's one of those things that, like, educate yourself, and learn and be familiar with all of these different things. So, cultural competence. It's learning to deal with difference and making it productive. We don't have time, but I would encourage everybody. It's a 3-minute video. It's fantastic. Thank you, Renata. It is an Accenture video, so I don't know if you've seen it, but it is a few years old. It's awesome. So you can just Google or go onto YouTube with "inclusion starts with I," and maybe I'll play it as we roll out of here, if you want to stay for a minute or two and just watch it. It's a really powerful video. There's no talking. It's a musical score, but it's really, really great. If you want to learn what your implicit biases are, this is a good website to go to. Take a little quiz, little survey, see for yourself. And finally, Sergio, this is for you. So I want to leave a few minutes at least for questions. If anybody wants to ask questions or have a chat.
I know you got to the cultural competence at the very end, and I just thought I'd share an image that is a reference to intercultural competence and where people's kind of orientation might be and how they view women's advancement. You could always substitute the word women for another minoritized identity. And there's just a series of questions that I think could be really helpful to identify, like, where individuals, let alone organizations, can kind of be. I guess I just want to advise that lots of places think that DEI work is just in universal policies, and that's not enough, right? So, and clearly I think you're getting at that, Erica. So I don't know, I just thought I wanted to share that resource because I think in the end, it's about how you build strong relationship with people. And if there's something that limits you from building and sustaining a good relationship with another person, then that becomes a DEI issue. And that's where the implicit bias maybe can explain that. So I don't know, thought I'd share some info.
That's great. No, thank you. I appreciate that. It's good. Anybody else?
Just one comment. I think I saw in one of these slides that diversity needs to be cascaded down, right? Otherwise, you have some business units that have some level of demographic diversity, if you will, and others that don't. So where do you see that the companies are moving based on like your research and what you see in Palo Alto networks? I feel in my role that we live project by project. I see it like very different mixes of people. It's sometimes extremely diverse, sometimes not really. And then when it's not really, you see the issue with the inclusion really in your face.
And the micro advantages and the equity. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's always room for improvement. I don't think anybody's perfect in this regard. And so digging in, and that's where you can measure it, you should. I mean, to the extent that you can. And so, at Accenture, maybe, the assignment of projects is something that you may be able to measure. For, Palo Alto Networks, it's not, like it's not a measure, something that you can be like, I assigned this project to, Renata, and I assigned this, like it's not really how the business is set up. But is it something that like the people business partner that the manager should know, right, and be aware of? So again, it goes to that manager training. But then, sort of who's the fox watching? Is there a fox watching the hen house type thing, right? So is there like a people business partner? And right now we actually hired IND business partners for product and IND business partners for go-to-market to sort of be the eyes, right? And just sort of like be talking to managers on a regular basis and just sort of understanding that stuff that you can't really measure, but that they're seeing or they're hearing, and trying to pull it together in a way that can be productive, both in a conversation with the leadership team and the managers or the impacted groups or in some fashion, in order to bring about either change because it's happening or address a perception issue. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of things that may be happening where they're like, I feel like this is what's happening and this is why. And when you actually, if you can actually look into it, it's not happening. But perception matters, right? I mean, that definitely matters. And so you can't ignore it, but why is there that perception and how can we correct that? And so it's thinking through, I'd say that's kind of where we land on all of those things.
Thank you. And I know we are at time. So for those who want to stay, feel free to stay for a few minutes. But for those who have to jump to the next meeting, I want to thank you all. There will be a game watch this Saturday for those who are in the Bay Area at Free Will in Redwood City. There will also be a holiday in-person event happening in Foster City next Thursday. So just keep an eye in the newsletter for the future events. And go blue. I'm super excited for the game this Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to mention, Erica, this is Carolyn again. I never looked at the micro inequities when I was getting left out of meetings. And like everyone in the department would go and I'm just sitting there like, oh, okay. I mean, I just thought it was one of my job duties just not to be involved, but I never knew what was going on around, in our department, and me being the only Black woman, only Black employee. Now I'm looking at them like, wow, that definitely, that's something, that's deep. That's really deep because I never looked, and now I'm thinking like, that's why I never knew what was going on in our department. What marketing jobs we had coming up, or, it wasn't until, unfortunately, the death of Brother Floyd, I started getting myself involved because I came out of my, my silence. I started speaking up more and sharing some of the uncomfortable moments I've had with my department and my director, but I never looked at it being a micro inequity, like this is where you need to be. Stay right here. Don't do nothing more, nothing less, kind of keeping me oppressed.
Yeah, but yes, absolutely. And I think what would be interesting, Carolyn, is, what was the response, right? And it's great that you had the both courage and the fortitude to, have maybe an open conversation about that. And sometimes, right, there are circumstances where people are left out and there may be a reason why somebody did it. But that person also didn't think about what it would be like if everyone stood up to go to a meeting, Carolyn, and you didn't go, right? So like, it's like that kind of other side of the coin of like, okay, well, maybe she doesn't need to be there, but it is a bit strange, right? She's a part of the team and a part of the group. And so maybe, next time we just invite her.
Well, I think for me, it was just, I came into a position that this particular person had these items to do, and that was it. She did nothing more. She did nothing less. Whereas I came here, to grow. I came here to use everything that I come with, as far as my education, my degrees, and so forth. Like, I want to elevate. This was like my get my foot into the door position, and I got in and like, hey, is there another job I can look? Oh no, this job is it. So if you want to look for something else, you're gonna have to, go to the website. And it was never that support, never that guidance, that mentorship, any of that. So I think a lot of the time when I was being excluded from these meetings, jobs were given, like, oh, I've taken on this position. Every time I turn around, someone was getting promoted. And in my department, I'm like, wait a minute, I could have did that.
Yeah.
I know what all they did was
right?
all they did was a spreadsheet. Shit, I could have did that, So I look at that as like, I'm wondering if that's what it was. We build, this is our team, this is our core, and this is one person that, it's that intimidation. It could be, because unfortunately, again, when Brother Floyd passed away, that's when I was getting the, hey, Carolyn, I didn't know you had a master's in creative writing and, MFA. And I'm like, well, no one ever asked.
Right.
So now you want me to write and be a part of the blog and, interview grad students. And so if I'm going to do that, guess what? I'm going to do marginalized students. I'm going to do, underrepresented students that don't get to get on our website. So now our website is colorful, whereas it was never colorful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great.
That's great. It's really, thank you for sharing. Appreciate it.
Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Can everybody see the video up here or no? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. I think I get like somewhat weepy every time I see that video. So
organizations can put in policies.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Go Blue. And
thank you. Go Blue.
Peace, everybody.
Go Bears.
Hey, if you mean Chicago Bears, I'm down with that, Caroline.
Bye, everyone.
Peace, everybody. Peace.